So our final question, actually there's two parts of this. I kind of added a second part. What do you think will make the East Bay community in Oakland more attractive to manufacturing, and how can industry, the workforce boards, community colleges work together to make this happen? And it's also, I think, attracting more people to manufacturing, more of our students to our manufacturing programs, into these industries. And we have several people here from our workforce development boards, different boards. And so at some point, once our panel finishes up here, if you have something you'd like to add, please feel free to pipe in.
All right. Yeah, so I'm going to speak broadly a little bit about what it is that our employers need, that we need to be able to provide. So our employers do need a great workforce, and we certainly are helping support that with all the efforts here. They also need space. They need space that suits their needs. They need we need to be able to preserve space that we have in the city and protect that from encroachment. We also need to be able to make sure that we have the new kinds of space that our manufacturers need. So we're working on a grant with we have established public priority production areas in the city, both in the port and the airport. And what we're looking to do through that, we have a grant through that program and through those areas where we're looking to figure out design guidelines both for our industrial districts that will make it much more predictable for developers that want to build space, so they know what the guidelines are for being able to build space. We'll be able to react to that, basically reduce regulatory burden, so that those spaces can be built, and that's a big part of what we need to do. We also need to have good environments for our companies to operate in. So that means having clean and safe environments. Basically, every department in the city is working to make sure that we can have those kind of environments. Our division is deploying millions of dollars for community ambassadors and other safety interventions. And then also just trying to look at how can we fund infrastructure to make these better places. Where that same grant that I was talking about also is looking at a formation toolkit for enhanced infrastructure finance districts and other things that we can use to basically fund all of the lighting in the streets and things that we need for real high quality environments for our manufacturers. And then I would say we need to just make sure that we promote how important manufacturing is, and that's something that all of us can do. We're in the midst of the Bay Area Manufacturing Week. We're trying to highlight a lot of what our manufacturers are doing a social media campaign and things like that, but we're also creating an industrial lands policy. This is part of our general plan update for the city that happens every 20 years or so. And then we're trying to make very, very clear, the importance of manufacturing to our city and the region. And we're doing some rezoning to make sure that we can support that space. But really, we have great manufacturers here. We need to make sure that people know about them, but we also need to, make it clear to others that this is a good place to be and build a real ecosystem for that.
So we're looking to expand in Oakland, and three things come to mind in terms of why we'd like to expand in Oakland and why this area: talent, space, and leadership. When it comes to talent, we have some great universities, great community colleges, and that leads to bringing in people that we need, from engineers to technicians to operators to administrators, salespeople. All of that can be available in the Bay Area. And then in terms of space, Oakland has so many redevelopment zones right now. They're trying to bring in things, and I think that I appreciate all the things that Eric has been saying here. terms of making it possible for companies to come and manufacture in this area. Not to mention also in terms of just the price of housing. Oakland, while it may be a lot more expensive than it once was, it allows for a broad range of people to be in the area. We want to have people working near where they're actually, people living near where they work. I think Oakland is an excellent place when it comes to that. Finally, leadership. The city of Oakland has really rolled out the red carpet. We're considering places to go, and Oakland has really opened up and helped us try to find places, make contacts, reach out to government officials that will help us move forward. So we greatly appreciate all the things that the city of Oakland has done. So all those together make Oakland a great center for trying to expand in terms of manufacturing.
To build on that, I think continuing to host events like this and continuing to invest in programs like this. I think we're all very excited to see the facilities here later, and continuing to put, I think it was said earlier, making sure that the equipment here that people are training on is up to date and at the level of what all of us have or better. That's extremely important. So continuing to put the high focus on that, because programs like this aren't as common as they should be. It's really hard to come by a system and a program like this that feeds the industry with as good of students as you guys do.
All right, I'll try not to repeat stuff. I'll talk about something a little bit different. So I think one thing that's been missing, speaking as someone who is not from California, but has made this my home, there's a huge amount of opportunity just in the outside of work part, so it's easy to attract people to come here. There's a lot of people who want to come here, and there's a lot of people who are already here who want to stay. So I think when I was in school, everyone talked about the designing of things, the product design side, which I think you hear a lot about with the tech sector, but the manufacturing side is a whole different level of creativity, and I can speak to a bunch of my technical peers that we ended up in spots we didn't anticipate, and we couldn't imagine it any other way. I think when we talk about passion, you don't have to have a predetermined passion for manufacturing, but there's so many people when it clicks that you develop a passion by being in it. And so being able to get the word out, being able to talk to different levels of expertise, different levels of technical training, different levels of education, there's many spots for everyone. And so being open to it, making sure it's an emphasis of an opportunity that has limitless growth. I was doing things a year or two out of school that people with 15 years of experience should have been doing because there wasn't anyone to do it. So the opportunities are endless, and realizing that by spending time in it, you can develop a passion for it, I think is something that not enough people talk about or not enough people understand. And being open to those opportunities and emphasizing those opportunities, they're never going to go away. We talk about automation like it's replacing production employees, but what they don't talk about is every automated piece of equipment you put in needs different types of support. We talk about maintenance, we talk about facilities, PLC is a term that's been thrown around a lot. Automation and controls is a huge topic, and that's not something that just materializes out of nowhere. So you need resources and not just high-level, highly educated engineering talent. There's a huge amount of support that is necessary for those things. And they're really cool, interesting things to work on that people, as soon as they get their hands on it, more often than not love doing it. So just huge amounts of opportunity just to explore the space and get exposure to it and develop those passions.
So, it was touched on here, is the local community sort of as a feeder system to manufacturing, and what I feel is truly missing is, or what would help the community, I guess, is reaching out at an early stage, junior high school, exposing the kids to manufacturing. I grew up in Fremont, and when I was a kid, I'm not the youngest guy in the room, there was a metal shop and a wood shop in 7th and 8th grade. You went to high school, there was a metal shop, wood shop, and auto shop. You started tinkering. I took apart my dad's alarm clock when I was in 8th grade. We never went back together, but I started figuring things out, and I think we need to engage the kids sooner, because my own personal experience, my kids went to a good high school, and it really pushed the 4-year degree program, and they didn't know what to do with the kids that didn't fit that mold. They really struggled. So I really do think we need to engage the kids sooner in manufacturing.
So,
Yeah, double down on that, Larry. You stole my words, man. Getting to youth and youth education at an early age. We've all talked about how we upskill adult learning within our companies, and we're deeply committed to that because, you know, when you automate and elevate, not eliminate, automate and elevate, you create new skill segments and new tech segments that weren't there before. But I completely agree with you, and we need to really start including our youth. I have an 18-year-old at home. He's graduated, and thankfully, and but he's still trying to figure out what he's wanting to do. You know, and I talk about things like industry and trades, and it's this foreign concept because he knows I work in a factory. He's been in a lot of my factories, but like you, I grew up with you know, vocational schools and attached to the high schools, and I think investing in that at a very early age with our youth is going to be really important to continue to meet that gap that's on that screen back there. Because if we're only focused on adult learning, then we're going to have an even bigger gap coming down the road, and it's staring us right in the face. So we really need to get with youth programs. And there's a lot of great outreach programs there to, as an industry leader, to go into high schools. I'm speaking at a culinary class next month and talking about manufacturing opportunities. So there's just ways to get involved, and I think we all play a part in that.
No, there's been a lot of emphasis on the youth, and the youth are our future, it makes sense. However, in manufacturing, there's an opportunity for people who have skill sets. I think of it as kind of a reentry industry as well. People who have been trained. Remember, I had a conversation with someone earlier today that they were an analyst, and now they're working in the tiny home program, and it's been kind of life-changing. So thinking about non-traditional careers for people that may have been, I come from a family of laborers and people who are entrepreneurs and made their own way without formal education. My father-in-law has an 8th grade education, but he has $1 million construction business. So just thinking about manufacturing as a way for not just youth, but adults changing careers, different things. If you work with your hands, you know, where they might be pushing students to the 4-year track or the, you know, white-collar track, understanding that anybody can go to college. Not everybody can afford to go to college, and not everybody can stay in college and finish. So thinking about that as a path for financial independence, security, food security, home security. In our companies, you can make 6 figures with a high school diploma, with a community college degree, without additional degrees and student loans and thinking about that. So it's just an option that we want to push out there to make it possible for youth, for adults, for retirees. All people are welcome.
So I'm going to let Mark close the panel, and then we're going to open it up for, we have people in the audience from the Workforce Development Boards, we have people from OUSD, and I'm sure you guys have something to add to this conversation, and if people in the audience have questions for our panel, that would be great too. So Mark?
All right. Two things that I want you to take away from this city. First off, you're a relatively small group, but that's okay, because this is what's going to happen. People out there are going to come talk to these people up here on the panel and exchange cards, because there are needs here. I see LOU out there, which is a community-based organization that works to help people find jobs and other resources. There's companies up here that are going to need your help. So you're here, and that's why you're here. There are other organizations. OEOC is in the house. I want you to come up here, talk to Akash, who's in Oakland, who's going to need workers soon, and let's talk about their apprenticeship program, which I'm talking to their founder into to try and implement. San Leandro, we got some San Leandro companies here that I want you to come connect with them about the apprenticeship program that Jared Delty is talking about, and maybe Tarani, we talk to them about that as well, or just talk about how your students can step into those jobs. So, or if you're a student looking for a job, come talk to them. Obviously, the workforce boards. I expect the Oakland folks to come descend on Akash and talk to them about what they need so they can stay here in this area. And I will need the same with the other companies. So that's the first thing. make those connections today, because that's really what this is about. The second thing is, that flickering light that kept going off was annoying, right? But you know what, I was here the other day, it wasn't flickering. The reason I think it's flickering is because of that awesome graphics up there, which is California has been a leader in manufacturing, leading state in manufacturing for a number of years, if not decades. This is saying, but people are like, oh, everything's moving out of California, it's moving to Texas, it's moving to Ohio. What this shows is that California is actually manufacturing growing faster than other states, okay? So we continue to grow in California in manufacturing. It's not easy, but these companies do it because they work smarter, they hire smart people to do the jobs, and so they're more efficient. And that's what they're gonna need, which leads me up with three things. Which is the third thing is this is not just a graph, it's stats. This means that people can get jobs here in California. And this is not just in the Central Valley or down south. This is the Bay Area needs people. And so this leads to people getting jobs. And that's the third thing, is that is a critical thing that we need to do, get more students interested in it, aware of it, so that those kids who don't want to go to a four-year university can find a career pathway that they love or that they like, and that they enjoy, and that they want to move in through, because it's a good fit for them, and we need that in this Bay Area, along with nurses and doctors and education and IT jobs. We need a variety of jobs, and manufacturing is that opportunity for those kids that want to work with their hands and their minds. Okay.
So, do we have questions or comments from people in the audience, Emiliano, or?
Thanks for calling me out. Yes.
So, Mike's bringing more time.
Good evening, Mike. Yeah. So again, Emiliano Sanchez, and I want to push a little bit more. You guys know about short-term and long-term investments. We gutted the vocational programs from most of our schools, and probably across the nation, about 30, 40 years ago. And so we're going to need some short-term, which means getting into the high schools, and we've been working with the city, Mark Martin, and several of you were actually part of the manufacturing day, but we need to do more in school pushing so that they know, hey, I can go to Laney, or hey, maybe this is an entry-level job that you guys are hiring right out of high school. But the other thing is the long term is like we need to start pushing into the middle schools, because you can't chase something that you don't know is there. Again, you can't chase something you don't know is there. They know they're doctors, they know they're lawyers. We've been doing a real good job in doctors, lawyers, teachers, except football players, athletes. But we haven't been able to compete with that. And that's what we need, is that competition, awareness. Again, all the way down to middle school, we can say, soft touches, and then when we're in high school, that's why I appreciate Mark and Raya, and of course every you again, and of course the city, that we have manufacturing day, but we need to do it on an ongoing, continuous basis.
That wasn't a question.
Okay, hold on. I have a question. How many of you are willing to come out to the schools in the next couple of months and present to our students? Raise your hand. I need your cards. I'll be down there.
That's what we want, that sort of connection. And Greg had mentioned that we have a volunteer match site where teachers can request speakers, and then volunteers can go and kind of search for schools that are close to them and looking for their particular talent. So connect with me and I'll tell you how to get that. Other questions or comments? Oh, there we go.
Hi, I'm Alameda County Workforce Development Department Colonel. Thanks everybody for Mark, everybody for helping put this together, Ryan and company. One of the things that dawns upon me is manufacturing in terms of at the national level. Like, what resources do you think we can come together for to try to kind of put together to? I think about the CHIPS Act, and it's so tech-based. It's manufacturing, but it's so tech-specific, and it was such a huge investment. I was thinking what could be similar that we could pursue at the state level or at the federal level.
So what was that question again specifically? I don't think we got that. Like, what skills nationally are we?
Not skills, but like how do, as an industry, like as an industry and as partners and outlets of that industry, how do we come together to procure resources for California or for manufacturing nationwide?
I think what the panel's been talking about is like we need a range of skills. all the way from, say, engineering various types, as well as these vocational skills, which are, filling the gaps that are really required to run the manufacturing floor or maintenance teams and so forth. I think most companies, like what we mentioned tonight, have been pretty flexible that if we have people with good general technical skills and all that, we can, maybe we can develop into more specific roles within those organizations, because every organization up here is a little bit different, but they need just general, broad skills that could be developed into more specific skills. But like I was mentioning, like 3D printing, that wasn't even a thing in our organization just a couple of years ago, but we started developing, parts, and we've developed a whole role, and, I think it's going to become more of a full-time role, just making these parts, which is something we didn't even envision. But the individual who started it just had an interest in 3D printing, and he's educated himself more as that industry's grown, and we've developed that. And so I think to be flexible and agile and scrappy, there's going to be more of those things that come across. But they don't necessarily need a 4-year degree. They just need some vocational school skills and technical skills and an ability to what people said here kind of thing, and be able to operate maybe some technical equipment, that type of thing. So I think some general technical skills, literacy, and all that's important. Like you mentioned, reading English. I think that's really important back also in the Bay Area, where most of our labor is immigrant labor, and we do have, I think, an issue with people being able to understand English, especially technical English, on the shop floor. So that's an area that I think could be helpful if we had more of that. So,
yeah. Daniel, did you have a thought about that, especially the CHIPS Act?
Yeah. Does this work? Great. Odd mic, but we'll go with it. We're looking to bring CHIPS Act money into the Bay Area. I think what happens, my general view of manufacturing is that manufacturing used to happen at the CHIPS Act. Chips were essentially developed in Silicon Valley, which is where we are. And little by little, the manufacturing moved overseas. But it still is a very high value-added industry. And so the CHIPS Act money, my sense is that we're trying to bring that back, pull it back into the United States. And what you can do is once you start industries in this area, what happens is it spurs innovation. So wherever the manufacturing happens, you see the problems that we're facing currently. As you see the problems, which happens in the manufacturing floor, you understand what the next thing you need to do is. And so by bringing the CHIPS Act, we'll bring things, manufacturing back to the US. That, I hope, will continue to develop this cottage industry that comes around that, and that will spur more innovation. So while it is at first bringing some level of manufacturing back to this area that had been moving overseas, it hopefully will also spur continual innovation in the area. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great idea. I'm a strong supporter, and I think the CHIPS Act will help in this particular area.
Kamal, let me build on that as well. I think it's actually, which is that CHIPS Act, the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Build Back Better, or the IRA one as well. A lot of their grants have a workforce component to it, as you may have seen as companies come in. I think we might want to actually sit down and meet. I know the workforce development boards meet all the time, but meet specifically on this, along with the manufacturers, or with the Bay Area and others, and the colleges, to put together a plan how we can help these small companies like a Koch that's applying for a CHIPS grant, like Brimstone Energy, which is in Oakland, which has been applying for them, and there's some state grants as well, to talk about kind of a workforce approach that we can do, and be ready to answer their needs when they ask for the grant, and kind of do a plan for this, because there are a lot of these clean tech companies and other companies that are looking for these grants. So I think we should get together and talk about that.
Ryan, you have a comment?
I have a question.
No. And then there was.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something continuing to that?
Go ahead.
I was on. Machine. I want to say that I don't want us to ignore the legacy of manufacturing in Oakland or the Bay Area in general. The Bay Area is host to 2 deep ports in not Oakland, but it is Benicia and Stockton. The next deep port along the western coast is in Washington State. And we're across the street from a facility. We think of Henry J. Kaiser, as we think of Kaiser now, as steel is the Kaiser of Henry J. Kaiser. So there is a legacy of manufacturing and labor in this community. Early parts of Oakland, labor strikes, different things like that. So I don't want us to ignore that and make it seem like we have to build or encourage. The laborers are here, the labor is here. We just have to be able to, reignite the passion, raise awareness, let people know the people are here already. I mean, we can attract people, but where will they live? Where will they work? We're answering that question now. So I don't want us to leave that on the table like this is kind of a scorched earth approach. We have the talent, we have the knowledge, we have the industry, we just need to connect. And that's what, when you ask that question, what do we need to do? The problem is we have manufacturing, we have education. No one owns the conduit to connect the two. No one owns the pipeline. We're supportive, but we need that. That's the missing piece, I think.
Sorry, one last thing to add on that. I think the challenge is like the trades apply, but it's not exclusively what's needed. And I've spent my entire career in 3 or 4 different industries, but always in manufacturing. And it's kind of hard to put your finger on exactly what those quote unquote transferable skills are. And so I think I don't have a great answer to it. I don't know that anyone has a great answer to it. Maybe that's the question that needs to be answered. A production person, a operator, an assembler, and every company's going to do something slightly different, to where the trades will apply to things like maintenance and equipment, but they don't apply to these types of roles. So I think that's more of the challenge, and what every company that I've ever been with has done is had to develop their own on-the-job training. And that's not just for production staff. As an engineer, most of my training has been on-the-job training. The specific knowledge requirements have been very low, and the ability to pick it up and apply it and elevate it has been what everyone wants. And so I think the question is what are the transferable skills, and not getting too specific in those, but getting people set up to be ready to hit those environments running and be a sponge and figure it out. And I think that's the challenge or the question that I don't know that anyone has a great answer to.
Okay, anyone else? Because I'm going to switch the subject a little. Right now, thank you so much, everyone, for your input. And I have students here that are studying business and computer science, and I was wondering if you could touch upon, within manufacturing, what type of business systems do you use? What kind of computer software do you think would make students more competitive for your business and computer functions? Things that are not necessarily on the floor engineering, but more on the business end.
Yeah, so I'll partially echo what I just said, and I would love to hear other people's opinions and thoughts, but again, being in a lot of different industries, working for a lot of different companies, I think the misnomer is that you need a specific experience. People will list, you'll see job descriptions all the time list a specific ERP software or a specific programming language. The reality is, most companies that are trying to attract the best people don't really care that much about the specific thing that you've used. In the engineering world, I think a hot topic historically has been CAD software, and you'll see, the auto industry uses CATIA, and then you'll see other companies use SolidWorks, and others use Creo, and there's just a huge diversity of that. I can take any engineer or any person who has worked with a solid modeling platform, and they can get up to speed fairly quickly on the thing that we use. So I don't know that it's a specific thing so much as types of things. Exposure to ERP systems, exposure to reporting, data analytics and reporting is a huge part of manufacturing, and that's a struggle. And the number of engineers who manage a business by Excel is way more than anyone wants to admit, and that's just not sustainable. And so it's just exposure to enterprise systems. It's exposure to what is ladder logic. It doesn't matter if you're programming in Python or if you're using an Allen Bradley PLC or a Siemens PLC. If you've programmed a PLC before, you understand how it works, and you can pick up the new thing fairly quick. So I think the challenge is getting those different types of exposures, and not so worried about these specific brand names or specific instances.
I'll just add to that. Most job descriptions are written for the ideal candidate. Very rarely the person they hire meets everything on a job description.
The other thing I would say is how we present our knowledge and expertise in a resume is usually a look back of the things that you've done, not the things you can do. So when you're thinking about positioning yourself for opportunities in manufacturing, highlight some of those things like curiosity, innovation, thinking, creativity, fine motor skills, ability to learn quickly, ramp time. Talk about the things you want to do in a way that makes you attractive to any one of these employers. Because like I said, there isn't really a degree, a major, certification exclusive to the manufacturing industry. We need it all, and we need all of you.
So I'm just gonna, I think we're about ready to close down. I'm just gonna make some closing remarks here. One of the great things about Laney and Peralta is I think we have across the district something like 34, 35 career technical education programs ranging from how to do computer games to machining to welding to horticulture to ecosystems. And then, you know, everything in between. And the opportunity that presents, because community college in California is cheap and affordable for the most part, is to try these different things and have people get passionate, what everybody up here talked about, find what they're passionate about. What I found out early in my job career, the worst thing in the world is to have a job where you come home on Friday and instead of enjoying the weekend, or maybe even working on the weekend because you enjoy your work so much, is sitting at home and thinking about how much I hate to go to work on Monday. We all have had those jobs, and some, you know, you have to do that sometimes to pay the bills, but I don't think anybody wants to make a career out of that, regardless of how much it pays. So what people talk to here about curiosity and exploring is our community colleges in Peralta District have the different types of programs in the range that provide opportunity for people to learn at a fairly inexpensive level, and look at a lot of different opportunities and find the things that you're passionate about. So again, I'd like to thank our panel and those who came.